Right.
Yo, it's bright out here. All right, guys, today we're going to go through all the gear for Ironman. So everything training, racing, and some luxury, nice to have items that you don't necessarily need, but they'll probably make you a better athlete. Come on, cool. So we're going to break each discipline down, go for swim, bike, run, nutrition, and strength training. Show you guys everything that you need to do an Ironman and to train for an Ironman. So kicking off with the swim. First thing, a good pair of goggles. I just run the Roka tinted goggles, a very light blue tint. Most of my swimming is in a pool, so I don't necessarily muck around with tinted, non-tinted. If you're doing open water swimming, I'd recommend getting a pair of non-tinted and tinted goggles just to deal with the sun. Next, swim cap. Again, not a necessity for training, but if you are going to race any triathlon, whether it is a sprint all the way through to an Ironman, swim caps are compulsory just for health and safety, right? So they can spot you easily. Next, this is a luxury item. These are just resistance bands. Not luxury in terms of price, obviously, quite cheap. You can just go down to Rebel or whatever and get them relatively cheaply. But for pre-swim activation, things like this, in behind, waking up your shoulders, it's just starting to drill that movement pattern before you get in the water is definitely something nice to do just for 5 or 10 minutes. And I definitely notice the difference when I do warm up with the resistance bands versus when I don't warm up with the resistance bands. Moving forward, I guess these are the key training items. Number one is pool buoy. This is just designed to keep your hips up on top of the water. It's relatively cheap. Get it from any sports store, or online, anywhere. It's great if you've been doing a lot of running, hips are feeling heavy and you're starting to sink a little bit. Whack one of these in, do some longer endurance efforts, keeps your hips up on top of the water and really just enables you to focus on your reach, your catch, pulling through the water. It just takes a little bit of pressure off your positioning too. So I think this is outside of goggles, this is my favorite piece of training kit. And they partner up well with paddles. Now, paddles, I suppose it depends who you ask whether they're a necessity or not. My coach would say they almost definitely are, especially once you get into half Ironman, full Ironman distance when we want to swim the 1.9 or the 3.8 Ks. What the paddle does, it just gives you a better feel of the water, so you can really feel that catch, pull through the water. Also, because it is a much larger surface area, you're using a lot more of your back muscles, back of your shoulder, so it really develops that swimming strength, really develops the muscles that you use during the longer course swims. Push them over. Now, the next three items are definitely not necessities. I probably use them once a month, maybe. The first being kickboard. Obviously, if you're a higher level swimmer, you guys use these a little bit more frequently than what triathletes do, but they're pretty self-explanatory. Like, hold on to it, kick, you go along. Next, a good pair of fins. Again, when you're really fatigued and you just want to get some endurance sets in, fins they're a great tool. Again, I don't use them all that often. Maybe once a month, that's being generous. I'll use it during the warm up or the cool down if I want to do like a longer 500 meter plus warm up or cool down set, just to take a little bit of the load out. But normally I'll just bang the pool buoy in. I think that's probably a little bit more effective, just in my opinion. And last, and not least, but this is definitely the piece of kit I use the least, mostly because I just don't like it. It's a little bit awkward for me to use, just maybe I'm not very good at it, I don't know. But the snorkel, basically this just enables you to bang the snorkel in and breathe the whole time without having to turn your head out of the water. And that just enables you to really focus on your stroke, really focus on your positioning, hand position, hips position, etc. And you don't have to worry about turning your head to breathe, because a lot of people, when they're swimming, especially when they're learning to swim, they lift their head up. When you lift your head up, your hips drop, and then you get all out of position. So banging the snorkel in keeps everything nice and flat while you're swimming, and you can focus on other aspects of the stroke. Now, for the race, compulsory bits of kit. Goggles we've gone over, swim cap we've gone over. For the majority of Ironman swims, they will be wetsuit legal. All wetsuit legal means is, I can't remember what the temperature is in Australia. I think it's around 19 degrees water temperature. If it is under 19 degrees, take that 19 degrees with a grain of salt. If it is under that temperature, it is wetsuit mandatory, which means you have to wear a wetsuit. And if it is over, it's somewhere in the low 20s, it is non-wetsuit legal, which means you don't wear a wetsuit. You can wear a swim skin, which is just a really, really thin version of a wetsuit, basically. And then anywhere in between that is swimsuit optional, which is where the majority of Australian Ironman swims fall, which means you can wear one of these bad boys. Now, this is the Roka Maverick. I think it's the Roka Maverick 2. I've had this since my first Ironman. It's unreal. They are pretty pricey. I think this one was about $1,000. Yeah, in terms of use, I think it's worth every penny. The way you feel in the water when you wear a wetsuit, like the poorest swimmer you are, the bigger benefit you get from wearing a wetsuit. It just helps keep, we spoke about that position, just helps keep everything on top of the water, helps keep your hips nice and high, and you just sort of glide along the top of the water. And it's just you just feel a lot more stable swimming in a wetsuit than you do swimming in just jammers or budgies or whatever. But that is everything you need for an Ironman swim: training, racing, and the nice to have stuff. Cool, now we're going to get into the run stuff. This is where we can really nerd out, because we can get into easy running shoes, carbon plated shoes, super shoes, heart rate monitors, all that sort of gear. And honestly, you can take this as far as you want. You can go from just having an old beat up pair of trainers that you do all of your running in, through to carbon plated or super shoes. But we're going to go through, break it all down, what to use it for, when to use it, how to use it, and what you actually need to do the Ironman. Let's start with the daily trainer. Now, these are the Saucony Speeds, Endorphin Speeds. Saucony Endorphin Speed. I'm not sponsored by them, but Saucony, if you're watching, shout out. These are the shoes that you just want to be able to run in, day out. There's plenty of cushion in the bottom. They're nice and comfortable, and you can just log bulk miles without putting any additional stress on your feet. Pretty much the way I think about easy trainers is, can I just run in this all day and there be no pain, no blisters, no discomfort? Sometimes when we move up in shoe and we go to like a speedier shoe, a faster shoe, and we're not wearing it for as long, I'd be willing to sacrifice some discomfort for performance. But for bulk running, a nice comfortable shoe that's got a nice natural roll that I actually think the Saucony do really well with the speed roll technology. I think they're pretty hard to beat. So a nice daily trainer should just be super comfortable. And when you put it on, there should be no hesitation. You should just be able to run in it all day, nice and comfortable. The second part to that is having a second pair of shoes in your rotation. Now, this is where we probably get, I guess, in the luxury aspect of it. Like, you don't need a second pair of daily trainers. There are some benefits. Like they talk about, if we bring back this first pair, they say if you run in shoes with a lighter foam, so something that's really cushiony, when you run in it, the foam condenses. It can take 24 to 48 hours for that foam to fully re-expand. And if you're running on foam, sorry, I'm going to bring this one back in. If you're running on foam that's condensed, it's going to put more pressure on your joints, pressure on your foot, pressure on your feet, etc. So having a second pair of shoes is definitely a luxury, not a necessity. However, if you're really starting to log some Ks, if you're getting up 50, 60, 80 kilometers a week or even higher, a second pair of daily trainers is, I think it's a must. These are the Saucony Kinvara Pros. I am on a bit of a Saucony kick at the moment. You can see they're well worn. They're getting absolutely flogged this prep. But I'm probably going to test out some new shoes as we build. I really like the look of the New Balances and the new Nikes, but we might do that in a different video. Next, this for me, it's a necessity, but I would say for 99% of the population, it is highly optional. These are trail running shoes. I absolutely love going trail running. It's something I've recently discovered probably in the last 8 to 12 months in terms of like the ultra community and being involved in ultra marathons and things like that. But for me, going out, running out in the bush is just heaven on earth. So a good pair of trail shoes is for me, absolutely no question. It is a necessity. These are the Hoka, I don't know what they are. These are by Hoka. Don't know what make they are, but they are unreal. I couldn't recommend these ones enough. I'll put them in the description when I work out what make and model they are. But a good pair of trail shoes, if you like to change it up, get off-road, I think they are unreal. All right, this is where we get really, really lavish. We really dig into performance versus necessity. Both of these shoes, we'll bring the other pair out. These are carbon plated shoes. The trendy word at the moment is super shoes. I wouldn't necessarily consider the Endorphin Pros a super shoe. I don't actually know what the definition of a super shoe is. I know that they talk about the foam and things like that. However, these Endorphin Elites, all by Saucony again, these Endorphin Elites are considered super shoes. So if we talk about Endorphin Pros, these are your speed shoes, your tempo shoes. These are shoes like I really half marathon and under, right? Like this is a shoe I would only wear if I was doing race pace or threshold sessions, some hardcore intervals where maybe like 1K repeats, 800 meter repeats, something like that. Anything over than that where we're trying to log bulk Ks, I would probably combine, move these to the side for a sec, I'd probably combine something like this where I would do the warm up and cool down in something with a bit more padding. So if we just make up a session, that's 20 kilometers, 5K warm up, 5K cool down with 5 by 1K in the middle. Warm up, cool down in something like this, and then I would change shoes and then do the intervals at race pace in these carbon plated shoes. There's a multitude of reasons for that. One being you only get a limited amount of kilometers in carbon plated shoes. As they start to wear down, the carbon plate gets less and less springy. If we think about how a carbon plate works, or we think about how running works, a little bit of a detour, guys, you'll get used to this. I do this a lot. You press into the ground while you're running, you absorb kinetic energy and it springs you forward, right? And this shoe, being only foam, will only give you so much kinetic energy. A carbon plate, obviously something a bit more rigid, you spring in the carbon plate, then that's not a very good demonstration with my hands, but the carbon plate absorbs more energy, springs you forward, right? So there's only so many kilometers that you get before the carbon plate loses that little bit of spring. Also, depending on who you ask, the multitude of different answers, but really unless you're running sort of quicker than 5:40, 5:30 being generous per kilometer, you don't actually get the benefits of a super shoe. Now, there are a few brands out there that are trying to change that. They're trying to make it a little bit more accessible. Obviously, that's a marketing ploy, so more people can wear more expensive shoes, they can make more money. But the quicker you run, essentially, the more help a super shoe will give you. Some people say if you're not running quicker than 4 minutes per K, you get nothing out of it. I've done some testing with both of these and some other super shoes, and I find it's about that 5:15 per kilometer where I start to see a bit of a boost. So I say all that to say this, these are great for threshold sessions, interval sessions, race pace sessions, not really anything else. You really just want to use these for a very specific job and then get them off your feet. Last but not least, in the shoe department, as you can tell, I've given these a proper flogging. I've actually just finished a whole bunch of testing in them the last couple of weeks, hence why they look like this. These are the Saucony Endorphin Elites. They are considered a super shoe, carbon plated, speed roll technology. I really think that this particular super shoe, having tried a few of them, would probably appeal to the most people. The reason I say that is because it's not a super harsh roll. It's not super rigid. It's just, I feel like it would fit the most amount of people. That being said, that's not always a good thing. I think you need, if you're going to spend $300, $400, $500 on a pair of race shoes. Now, just as we said, these are a very specific shoe for a very specific reason. These shoes only come out for key sessions. So we're talking like 2 or 3 weeks before a race where you're doing 34 kilometers at marathon pace, for example, or you're doing 3x10K at marathon pace. You're really starting to peak for a race, whether that is a marathon or an Ironman, and they're getting 2, 3, 4 runs before a race. I think that this shoe is potentially, like I said, fits the most amount of people. It's probably the most universal, but you do need to find the shoe that's right for you. You do need to find one that fits your running style. You do need to find one that fits the way you take stride, the way that you run if you're a forefoot striker, midfoot striker, or a heel striker. All the big brands make a shoe slightly differently, so go test them, go for a run in them, and then find the one that's best for you. But for me right now, it is the Saucony Endorphin Elite. I am going to test some. Jacob, maybe that's a video we can do. Guys, put it in the comments if you want to see a super shoe review. We'll get Saucony, Asics, New Balance, Nike, all of those shoes, and we might do like some side-by-side testing, show you guys how to test for each shoe and that sort of stuff. But if you want to see that, put it in the comments and we'll make it happen. Now we'll just get into some quick accessories. I just think these are, if you're going to be running, you're going to be doing bulk Ks while you're running, you want to be comfortable, you want to have some reliable data. So the next things are just some nice accessories. Number 1, a good running hat. Shout out to Aid Station. They sent me this like a year and a half ago, still in great nick. It's a fractal hat. It's just super vented, great running hat, absorbs sweat, all of that good stuff. So a good running hat, essential, especially summer, guys, it's fucking hot, wear a hat. Next, sunnies. Again, you're running outside, middle of the day, you're doing bulk Ks, good pair of sunnies. These are the active ones. These are actually Cara Saunders brand. If you guys are in the CrossFit space, you'll know Cara Saunders. But she has a whole range of sunnies that are unreal. This is my second pair. Also use these on the bike as well. But super comfortable, lifetime warranty, all that stuff. Not sponsored, by the way, just I think they're a great product. Next, heart rate monitor. This is just the Garmin HR Pro, I think. HR Pro or HR Run or whatever they call it. Just links up to your watch, links up to your bike computer, all of that stuff so you can get live, accurate heart rate data. If you're taking your training seriously, you really want to get a heart rate strap or even the Coros arm straps because they're so much more accurate than a watch, right? A watch can be out by 20 or 30% sometimes, which if you're really trying to dial in heart rate zones, running in zone 2, running at threshold, running in like a race pace zone, so like your zone 3, you want accurate data. So having a heart rate monitor is essential, and I wear this all of my training sessions except for swimming and obviously when I race. And last but not least would be GPS watch. This is actually, my partner Sam actually just got me this like the other day. This is the Garmin Forerunner 955. I recently had the Garmin Forerunner 935, 335, 355, whatever it was. Had that for like 3 or 4 years. Never missed a beat. It was unreal. So I'm hoping to get the same out of this. I really like the Garmin watches. I think they're just pretty much indestructible, and they were built for triathlon. Garmin is still one of the big sponsors of triathlon. They have swim, bike, run, strength training, GPS. They give you live pace updates. They connect to your heart rate monitor. They connect to all sorts of different things. They tell you your cadence. Any stat that you need to be a better runner, you can find on a Garmin wristwatch. Cool, so let's dig into nutrition. I don't think people give nutrition enough respect in terms of what a key component it is when it comes to endurance training. Endurance training of any caliber, let alone Ironman training. I think it is definitely important gear, an important tool that we need to use training, racing, recovery, all the time. You should be just thinking about nutrition and hydration. I like to break my stuff down into training and racing. Some people might think that's a little bit pedantic, but I do have a good reason for it. So if we start with training gear, I personally use the Pure Sports and Nutrition stuff. Yes, they do sponsor me. Yes, they do sponsor me. Yes, I am affiliated with the brand. However, However, in my agreement, I'm allowed to use whatever products I feel make me the best. And for training, Pure Sports Nutrition does that for me. I use the electrolytes, let's get into the electrolytes from Pure, because this is a hack. This is their high carb electrolytes. Now, if you're doing bulk endurance training, 12.5 grams of carbohydrates per scoop is not a lot of carbs, right? So per serving, it is 3 scoops. That is 37.5 grams of carbohydrates, not a lot, and 300 milligrams of sodium. If you buy this little bad boy, this is the low carb electrolyte powder. This has 4.5 grams of carbohydrates. So again, carbohydrate difference is minimal. However, it has 384 milligrams of sodium. So you get triple the sodium. If you're a heavy sweater like me, I recently did a sweat test with Ready Sweat Go, and it was 1,136 milligrams of sodium per hour. So that's a shitload of salt. If for me to get 1,100 milligrams of sodium with this, I need 11 scoops, basically the whole bag. This, I need 3 scoops. So a little hack if you're a heavy sweater. Next, Pure Energy Gels. These are just super tasty. They're fluid gels, so it doesn't have that real viscosity that you get with some of the other gels. I can just knock them down. They're fruit flavored and super easy eating. These are actually caffeinated, 25 grams of carbohydrates per serve. We might even do a clip of that. I got a whole list of flavors up there, pretty much have the whole range. These are unreal. They're like a tasty treat while you train, so they're unreal. Next, protein. I think everyone knows how important protein is. Protein, creatine. I don't have creatine on me, but 5 grams of creatine, 2 scoops of protein every single day. Muscle repair, helps keep me feel satiated. So sometimes if I'm doing a fat adaptation session or a lower intensity session and I don't want to overload on glycogen, I'll have protein. Next, this is my race gear. And now you might be like, cool, if you're sponsored by Pure, why do you use different stuff for a race? And that is a fair question. Mostly because the Precision Fuel and Hydration gear is unflavored. When I'm racing, I just like it to be, I don't want anything to upset my stomach. I don't want anything that could possibly turn in the heat. Obviously, we leave our bikes out. We're in the sun for extended periods of time. We're running in the middle of the day. I don't take any risks when it comes to race sessions. The other thing I really like, and this is just me being fucking pedantic, is it's exactly 30 grams of carbs per serve, right? I like simple math. So I use a combination of the caffeinated gels and the non-caffeinated gels from Precision Fuel and Hydration. I know it's exactly 30 grams of carbohydrate. I know it's unflavored. It just tastes like sugar, which is great. Same with their carb mix. I usually use the carb and electrolyte mix. Don't have it on me at the moment. But again, I know exactly what's in it. I know there's no flavoring. There's no nothing. Nothing's going to turn. Nothing's going to upset my stomach. I think they're just rock solid. And when you're racing, you really want to remove as many variables as possible, right? So not that this has ever happened. I think Pure is a fantastic product. Obviously, I use it every single day, but maybe a raspberry gel that's been sitting in the sun for 4.5 hours while riding my bike might not taste awesome. Don't know, don't really want to test it either, but I do know that this doesn't change its flavor, whether it's been sitting on your bike all day, whether you've been running a marathon. It is just unflavored. It just tastes like sugar. So I think they are just super reliable. Yes, and they also cost a premium, right? Like Precision Fuel and Hydration, arguably the biggest brand in the sport at the moment outside of Morton. Even that might be debatable at the moment. And they charge a premium because they can, and I think it's actually worth it. So I do only use these products while I'm deep in race prep. So it's almost similar to the Tempo shoes or the race pace shoes that we spoke of, the super shoes that we spoke about earlier, where I'll only use these for very similar sessions, key bikes, key swims, key runs, just to start to assimilate that into my gut. My gut knows when I'm at this intensity, this is the food I'm taking in, this is the fuel I'm taking in, this is the hydration I'm taking in, and all that starts to work in sync. So the Precision Fuel and Hydration gear, we even got their new Flow Gel. Haven't tried that yet, but we're going to try that soon. I think is unreal. But all of that hails in comparison to the goat of goats, Powerade powder. Just Powerade in general. Shout out Powerade. I think everyone, whether you were training for your local park run all the way through to Ironman, ultramarathon, can benefit from using Powerade. Definitely not sponsored by Powerade, even though I would fucking love to be. It'd be like being sponsored by Weet-Bix, honestly. I use the Powerade powder pretty much every single day, just because I can control how strong I want it. Multiple scoops, multiple grams of carbohydrates. I can add salt tablets to increase the sodium. It is super cheap. I can get it anywhere. I can get it at any Servo, Woolworths, Coles, any supermarket, anywhere, right? And obviously we can't get these other products anywhere. You got to order them. You got to be on top of it. This is just, I think it's the GOAT. I think it should be the cornerstone of everyone's sports nutrition is Powerade. That might sound a little bit over the top, but I think it is that important. It's just a really good, accessible electrolyte mix. It ticks all the major boxes. And if you want to make it stronger, you can. If you want to make it weaker, you can. You can literally customize it, which any of these other products you cannot customize. So Powerade, highly, highly recommend. Now we're going to go to the garage. We're going to talk about the bikes, which I know you guys are hanging out for, and then we will talk about some strength stuff as well. All right, now this is what I know all the bike nerds have been waiting out for. Let's get into the bike gear. So this is kind of like the little bike corner at the moment. We've got the race bike over here in the corner, which is the Cervelo P5. We'll get into that in a second. And this is, I guess, the training bike, even though it's much nicer than a training bike, the Cervelo Caledonia. I was super fortunate that the boys at Coast Cycle House, they didn't give it to me free, but they sponsored me, helped me out, made sure I could get the right equipment that I needed for this, and then I do some work with them on the side. Let's touch on this bike first. It's just a very stock standard road bike. Move that to the side for a sec. Oh. Cervelo Caledonia, all Di2. This is the bike, very similar to when we spoke about the shoes in terms of the daily trainer, right? So all of my zone 2, my bulk work, getting out in the hills, just the hours and hours and hours of pedaling, I'm doing on this bike. It is super comfortable, nice and light, handles the hills perfectly, you can get a decent amount of speed on it, and it is just designed for bulk riding. And ever since I've had this, I've noticed number one, significant improvement in my riding. But number two, my willingness to want to ride, because I don't always have to deal with a super rigid race bike, which previously, when I had the BMC, I would just ride that. And to be honest, it was a bit of I didn't really enjoy riding it, so I didn't ride as much. To go along with that bike though, there are many people, because we are talking about what you need for an Ironman, what you don't need for an Ironman. You do not need that for an Ironman, right? That is an absolute luxury. If you go down to any triathlon, whether it is a sprint or a full distance Ironman, you will see someone riding a road bike that is in much worse nick than this, 100% guaranteed. Like I've seen people on BMX bikes, people on mountain bikes. You can absolutely do any form of triathlon on a road bike. You do not need a big fancy tri bike, spend thousands of dollars. Jump on Facebook Marketplace, you can grab a road bike for $1,000, go get it fitted, get yourself a helmet. Doesn't need to be a fancy aero helmet, just a good solid helmet, protect the noggin, and a good pair of sunglasses like the ones we talked about before, or like ones we spoke about before. You're good to go. But if you want to push yourself, if you want to go fast, a TT bike is a must. Now this, again, I am so fortunate that I was able to work out a deal with the boys with Mick and the boys at Coast Cycle House where I could get my hands on a 2024 Cervelo P5. This is arguably the fastest triathlon bike in the world at the moment. Guys like Matty Burton are riding them and they are just lighting the courses on fire. It's 100% customizable, so everything up here is, we spoke about this a little bit in the previous video when we spoke about bike fitting, but all of this stuff is just fully customized to me, the way I ride, all of the arm cups, the angles, the length of the cranks, everything is just perfect for me and the way I ride. And when we're doing the amount of volume that I need to do to achieve a sub 10 hour Ironman and hopefully finish a 180 kilometer bike in under 5 hours, this is the vehicle that is going to get me there. Now, you can have the fastest bike in the world, but if your big old head's sticking out of the way, not much good. So this is where we start nerding out. Aero helmet. This is the Giro, whatever it is. I guarantee you go to any triathlon, you'll see the majority of people wearing this helmet. I'm actually not a big fan of it. I'm going to change it. I am going to look into some other ones, do some testing. But for an entry-level helmet, you can get this just about anywhere. The visor literally just clips on magnetically, just like that. It is, obviously fix the clips up. And this, again, will suit 99.9% of people. I think I'm actually the only person I know who doesn't like this helmet out of the people I know who have it. So, again, not a necessity, but if you're forking out money on a TT bike, spend the extra couple $100 and get yourself an aero helmet, okay? It just makes sense, right? You don't want to have a nice dialed in aero position on a bike and then have your head sticking out, having a big old wind sail. Like we spoke about in the previous video with bike testing, like you are the biggest thing that slows you down on the bike, right? You're the thing that's hitting the wind the most. The smaller your position, the more tucked in you can get, the more aero you are, the faster you'll go for less effort. Last but probably not least in terms of bike gear necessities, there's a little bike computer. Now, everyone will look at this and go, what the fuck? Because majority of people have these huge fucking things that are touch screen and colored and all different screens on it. I actually don't like them. I just like a super small, super simple. I think I have like 4 or 5 data fields on that. It's like the Garmin 108 or 180, something like that. Whatever the smallest one is, that's what I bought and I absolutely love it. But you can get big ones, like I said, all different data fields, color, touch screen, all that sort of stuff. This, while we're racing, is pretty much our lifeline. So it tells us heart rate, tells us power, tells us speed, tells us how long we've been going for, distance. It syncs up with all of the different widgets you have on the bike. It's a heart rate monitor that we spoke about before, gives you a live feed right in front. So it sits right here, middle of the TT bars. If you can think like we're down like this, the data is right here in the middle, and that is pretty much, I'd say, a necessity if you have any sort of ambition in the bike of any form of triathlon. One last luxury, as you can see, this bike currently doesn't have a back wheel. That is because it's on an indoor trainer. This is just the Wahoo Kicker Core, which, to be perfectly honest, is on its last legs. I'm about to change it out, get a V5 or a V6. But an indoor trainer is a must. I think if you want to have, if you really want to have nothing affect your training and you want controlled environments, it's a must. If you're happy just riding outside, getting the kilometers in when you can, it's definitely a luxury. So it just depends on what you're trying to achieve. Weirdly, this theme runs through all of the disciplines. This bike only comes off the trainer for very key sessions, similar to the super shoes, right? So if we're doing a 200 kilometer race pace ride, or 200 kilometers with 3x50 at race pace, for example, or 3 by an hour, 4 by an hour, 5 by an hour at race pace, this will come off the trainer. Main reason because, number one, don't want to crash it, don't want anything to happen to it because they are super expensive. Second reason, race tires. Very similar to Formula One, V8 supercar, anything like that. Limited number of kilometers in the tires. Start running through them. They're a couple $100 a tire, $400 every time you want to change them. If you're logging bulk Ks on those tires, you're going to go broke pretty freaking quickly. So this bike basically lives on the trainer. It is for threshold sessions. It is for race pace sessions. When we're getting closer to the race or we're doing bike testing like we did the other week, bring it off the trainer. It does a very specific job for a very limited amount of time, and then it goes back. All right, guys, and finally we're going to talk about a little side project. That's going to be the home gym. You can see here it is just a garage filled with shit and a nice bike in the corner. We've recently just laid all the flooring, put all the gym mats down. Essentially, we're going to gut the place. So pull everything out, put a nice big shed out the back, get rid of all of this shelving. And then we really want to build up pretty much a full-on home gym. So sauna, squat rack, dumbbells, assault, all the assault gear. So assault bike, rower, ski erg, all that sort of stuff. My partner Sam and I, we actually come from a CrossFit background. That's how we met. That's like, if I wasn't doing Ironman, I'd still be doing CrossFit. So I really still enjoy that Olympic style lifting, some really spicy conditioning sessions. So we're going to pull everything out here. So obviously all of this stuff's going to go, lawnmower as well. Squat rack's going to go up here. Dumbbells in the corner. In this corner is going to be like I guess this will be like the Ironman or the endurance corner. Keep the bike on the trainer. Going to put a treadmill here. Going to wall mount TV up there for Zwift and for whatever else. We're also going to put in a couple of tool chests in the back there, mostly to have all of the bike gear, race gear, and any stuff I need to do maintenance on the bikes. Moving over here, we're going to put a sauna, maybe an ice bath. I really fucking hate the cold, so I don't know if I'm going to do an ice bath, but definitely a sauna for heat adaptation if we go race Cairns or we go race WA or maybe Malaysia. Heat adaptation is just, I think it's essential. If we start panning around, this is currently where I keep all my spare shoes, running vests, all that sort of stuff, just stuff I don't use all the time. We're going to pull that out, pull all this shelving out, put it in a shed out the back, and along this wall we'll have all the conditioning gear, so Rogue assault bike, ski erg, rower, wall balls, med balls, GHD, all that sort of stuff. And then we'll probably keep the mountain bikes here. We're going to get them fixed up again. And again, just like trail running, I really love mountain bike riding. I think I really love mountain bike riding. I think it's just as beneficial. Go out, ride somewhere you enjoy, rather than necessarily hitting the pavement all the time. So I do enjoy taking the mountain bike out when I get an opportunity. And that's going to be pretty much the home gym, guys. So over the next couple of months, you'll see that develop. Every time we get something or we start making changes, we'll do a little update for you. But the idea will be that this will kind of turn into a little home gym / content studio. Jacob's going to help us. We'll set some lights and things up, do like the sound and everything. So we can just turn cameras on, make content, film videos for you guys, and it actually look legit, be in a controlled environment. And yeah, that'll wrap up the video, guys. We've done swim, bike, run, nutrition, home gym, and when's this video going, Jacob? Start of the year? Yeah, so Happy New Year to everyone. And the next video after this will be, probably we'll talk about 2025 race calendar, and you guys will know when we're doing sub 10, what the calendar looks like. We've got some cool stuff, including a potential Guinness World Record. So all of that will be dropping in a couple of weeks.